Nice for a while.
5, 7 o'clock. So everybody ready? Call the order. Go to the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Of course, we have a couple announcements. The first is that for the November 7th, 2017 election, there are 3 positions, 2 trustee and the mayor position that will be up again for a term to expire in December of 2019. I will make a motion for a public hearing on Monday, April 3rd to consider the 2017-18 operating budget. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then the third one I have is actually a nice letter from Chief Gilardi in Dobbsbury, who actually sent it to our police chief, who shared it with me, but I thought it'd be interesting to share with everyone. Chiefs, this is addressed to Irvington, Hastings, and Ardsley PD. Chiefs, last Sunday, March 12th, 2017, between 03:06 hours and 03:34 hours, this department, Dobbs Ferry, received 5 calls for service. Each of the calls required immediate police response. The first call, a medical aid, resulted in the arrest of a male with a loaded shotgun who was attempting to prevent responding officers from rendering aid to an unresponsive female, the victim of an apparent drug overdose. The second call, the medical aided, was an assault resulting from a domestic violence incident between 2 intoxicated males. The third call, a medical aided, was for an unresponsive intoxicated male at Mercy College. The fourth call was a panic alarm at the home in the Manor. The 5th call was for a fire call, smoke in the residence, also in the Manor. With only 2 officers on the road, the desk officer reached out to all 3 of your departments for assistance, and within minutes, the much-needed additional manpower was here and ready to help. Well, thank goodness this is not an everyday occurrence. It is comforting to know that help is only a phone call away. Please convey my sincerest thanks to the following members of your department for their assistance. In Irvington, it was Matthew Eckert and John Nairati. So thank you, Officer Eckert and Nairati, and thanks to the chief. It is nice to know that the mutual aid system is working. We see it very often with the fire departments because we have, especially during the day, they're typically minimally staffed, and it works phenomenally well. I think the greatest example of that, of course, was 9/11, which was so well organized for such an unbelievable event. The fact that, I would say the fact that Ladder 36 was in Lower Manhattan, Irvington Ladder 36 was in Lower Manhattan in an organized way was amazing to me. And the organization that day at kind of Yonkers Raceway, it isn't everybody just come and help out. It's very, very organized. They do train on this. The fire department trains all the time with our fellow departments, Dobbs, Tarrytown, Chelmsford, Hastings, and Ardsley. And the chiefs talk all the time. So there's a familiarity, there's a commonality of the language, and it's the same thing with the police. So we're lucky to have them. We obviously all have small departments, and it's great to know that we can rely on each other. So anyone else have announcements?
Yeah, just my typical one about Slow Down Irvington and the current theme of the season, because it's still school's in session as always, is Walk Safe. And we have materials available, including things like bumper stickers that are removable type of bumper stickers. They're free at Village Hall. And through Phelps Memorial Hospital, we have reflective armbands for runners, walkers, students, dogs, cats, whatever's outside in the evening or in the early morning. Again, these are available in Village Hall at the administrator's office. They're also available at the police department and at the rec center. So pick yourself up some freebie reflectors and be safe at night or in the morning.
Anyone else? We're going to move on to correspondence, which I'll remind people that if you want your correspondence, including in following meeting, the deadline is noon on Friday, just so we can get it distributed. We've actually started sending out a draft agenda on Thursdays, so people can, if they want to respond to something that's time sensitive, they can send us the letter before noon on Friday. Otherwise, if we receive it after that time, we'll include it at the next meeting.
You have to put your name and address.
Yeah, they can't be anonymous letters.
Or just an email, okay.
This one is from Ann Altman. Subject is noise pollution, gas-powered leaf blowers. Dear Mayor Smith, we moved to Irvington in January 2015. This will be our third spring in Spiro Park neighborhood. Most folks look forward to spring, but I hope winter never ends for one reason: the obnoxious and omnipresent gas-powered leaf blowers. We're a town which prides itself on being green. The residents really seem to hate trees and leaves and has no problem with pollution, noise, emissions, and debris from a high-powered leaf blower machine. I'm a stay-at-home mother of two small children. We were deafened by crews of leaf blowers 3 to 4 days a week for 2 to 3 hours per day in the neighborhood of Barney Park and Ferris Street Pines. Who decided that quality of life is determined by vision alone? I'm sure if I was playing music as loud as leaf blower crews, I'd get a visit from the Irvington Police Department. There's overwhelming evidence that gas-powered leaf blowers are bad for the environment. The workers who use them in very lawns they claim to be tending. The soil is not meant to sustain hurricane-force winds several times a week for months on end for a myriad of reasons. Other river towns have legislation and or bans in place, so why not Irvington? There are electric leaf blowers, more green and silent options. What did folks in Irvington do 40 years ago before gas leaf blowers were invented? But it was a nicer place to live. I hired a company to do lawn cleanup and insisted they use rakes. Yes, it costs a little more. You're welcome, Irvington. Please advise me to get a moment. Appreciate your help. And Altman, 7 Brook Place in Irvington. Leaf blowers are something that we actually had drafted legislation on, I'd say over a year ago, maybe 18 months ago. And I remember it was in January, so it must have been January of 16. The Green Policy Task Force asked if we could put it on hold while they worked on it.
Might have even been the year before that.
Might have been.
Yeah. It's a while ago.
But it's a while ago. Unfortunately, the Green Policy Task Force is not fully active.
What had come with this email was she'd actually attached the email that I had circulated after going around and talking to a bunch of landscape companies. And so there was some feedback about certain types of exceptions for certain conditions and whatever. So when we get back to that topic, certainly we'll pull out that email again and go through what was being talked about.
Yeah, I think it is a balancing act between kind of noise and as well as, getting things done quickly and inexpensively. And if you have certain large areas, there's a lot of things we were trying to, I think that's why it was kind of put on hold. We didn't want to go with a complete ban. Then there was also what time of the year was it necessary.
We were changing at the time from loose leaf pile pickup to bagged leaves, and so that the Green Policy Task Force actually asked you to hold off on any changes regarding leaf blowers because they didn't want to see the bagged pickup impacted in any way.
Right.
I mean, that's
definitely, yeah. And the other thing was just that there was a discussion, and a couple of landscapers were talking about, not just the number or time of the leaf blowers, but also kind of what's considered to be, what you might consider to be leaf blower etiquette. Like don't blow stuff into other people's yards or driveways and things like that. So that's all encompassed in that material that she actually had attached.
But I think it's something we do have to kind of pick up again and try to find that balance. It's not completely cut and dry.
I'm going to say now, it's 6 years ago, I did some investigation of different municipalities and where they stood with the laws in response to a couple of letters similar to this, but they're usually,
another one as well.
yeah, usually from neighborhoods where houses are close together. And there was at that point, a fair amount of discussion about what was the effect with asthma and kids in neighborhoods, and of course the noise issue. And Mark, I think either I talked to you or you communicated about the effects on the effectiveness of the soil and how well it, how poorly it can actually support growth if it's blown so much that nutrients are blown out of it. So there were many levels that was discussed on this issue quite a few years ago. I always wondered how much it's an issue of noise, because we have, we could communicate what the noise we have something in the code. I'm not sure, Mary Ann, you might remember.
The thing is, it's really hard to measure noise. It really is hard to measure it. And then even, you know, even if you've got the machinery, there's a particular machine you use. I don't know whether your police or building department has it anyway, they don't all. And then you get out there and they're not doing it anymore and you can't measure it. So that's not the most effective way of dealing with it. I mean,
Right, in your head, this is what people are really worried about is noise.
Actually, to update that a little bit, just for you, I now have 2 decibel
Do you?
meters
Well, then we
on.
can send Mark out, okay.
I'm not saying anything about how accurate it is, but, you know, now you can get them on your cell phone. I suppose you could do some kind of practice to see if it, you know, how accurate it was. But,
How do we move this forward? Do we?
Yeah.
We're gonna have to bring it back onto our priority list.
yeah.
Just say you want it on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it on the list. I think that's something we have to look at, because we were kind of waiting for some additional guidance on it, and that's not coming, so it's kind of back in our lap, I think.
And I mean, since we're throwing out a bunch of ideas, it may be one way to handle it is the way we're doing with rock chipping, to limit the number of particular times of day. Although that might not be particularly helpful for landscapers to move from client to client, so.
You know, part of the problem, and this is, we could talk about this more, but part of the problem is also that, you know, there's a behavior problem, and that's the one that you really have to get at, because you'll see crews with 3 or 4 guys with a backpack blowers plus one guy pushing a wheel blower, and they just leave the stuff running, and they'll go there and they'll have 3 people chasing 2 leaves. It's almost as if noise equates to undoing my job. And so there's a little bit of that too. There's a little bit of psychology that has to be addressed at some point.
And I do remember, until we can end it here, but that the discussion was, you know, if you write it, then you do need to enforce it. And there was a question of how much, you know, time and effort goes into that enforcement and how it's done.
Could I just suggest that Hastings law has been in effect pretty long, because I had drafted it back when I was working there, so it's quite a while, you know, several years. It might be worth talking
See how it's working.
to somebody there to see how it works. There was a lot of opposition there from landscapers, but they went ahead and did it. I'm not sure how it's worked out, but there would be a good village to talk
Can we
about.
put a follow-up, Larry?
Yeah, I remember I went to
You or myself
Terry.
follow up with Hastings?
I think I went
I'd
to
be
Terry.
curious to hear what other of our local communities are doing.
We can ask the VOC maybe.
One of the things, and then I'll drop the topic, one of the things that was pointed out to me is that Irvington actually has a lot more larger estates larger properties than a lot of the other local villages do, and so that creates a
Makes it harder.
special condition.
And that's not where the complaints come from. At least my
No,
anecdotal.
that's it, you're right.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
the complaints
The
come from
complaint
the core
comes from
village for the most part.
Larry's neighborhood, of
Yeah.
these neighborhoods, you know,
Yeah.
that's, right.
Can I ask a quick?
Wait till public comment.
It's coming up next.
It's coming right up, right.
This is a great segue. Public comment, anyone would like to speak?
I guess Larry.
Leola
you
Stacks,
need to
14
send
North
that
Cabinet Street.
email around.
I just have a quick question relating to the topic we just discussed. So in terms of noise ordinance, you're talking decibel, right, Mark, in terms of the loudness of it at any hour, right?
Well, that's,
Yeah.
normally they're not really regulated by noise, they're regulated by hours of operation. Leaf blowers.
Okay, that was my question, would the hours take care of it, or are we talking more of a decibel situation even during the hours when it isn't quiet hours?
Because I think we did say that, at least as we discussed, I don't know what we came up with, but like, you know, like electric ones are okay. But-
Yeah, there were specific exceptions for homeowners.
Yeah, one at a time, but you
One at a
couldn't
time,
have your thing of the 3 guys chasing 2 leaves. So
Blowing the leaves
it got
on the
very
road
specific.
itself, not even.
Okay, yeah, I
Anyway,
would like
there are
to
a lot of
have
things.
us limit both the sound and the hours, maybe our regular noise hours is okay. And the self-policing, I think, is good too. I once ran my little electric lawnmower after 8 PM when it was light in summer, and a neighbor said, it's after hours, there's a baby next store, and of course I quickly turned it off, but, so some self-policing could take place. My other suggestion about looking into maybe the Hastings too is the pollution level type situation and the fumes, and that's, it brings to mind a bigger level of idling, and I feel like we should enforce, if we have a rule at all, our no idling rule, where people are getting out of their cars and letting them idle, which is, it's absolutely unnecessary with our current kind of cars, you know, so a no idling rule, I'd like to see us put one in or enforce.
There is a
better.
Westchester
Yeah,
County.
Westchester wide.
Westchester County has a pretty good one.
Yeah.
So
3 minutes.
maybe we can enforce that.
Yeah.
Well, trucks, buses, and everything.
One thing about,
Except for police cars, they're exempt, they're emergency vehicles, they're exempt.
Yeah.
One thing about pollution levels is that ostensibly, all leaf blowers are regulated by the county as part of the licensing process for landscape home contractors. And they are supposed to be the newer type of 4-cycle, not 2-cycle, so they supposedly, with a limited amount of emission control, they're better than the old ones that were around 10 years ago, but they still have, you know, they're not like zero emission at all. They still have a lot of particulate that's being put out.
So there are some regulations.
There are
so
some
whether we want
regulations.
stricter ones or, okay.
Well, I don't know if you can get stricter, because it's in terms of pollution control, because those are the only kinds of things you
Well,
can
no
buy
leaf
on the
blowing in
market.
the village, I guess, would be one stricter way, but, yeah, okay,
Okay, yeah.
thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
free rake for everyone.
Yeah.
Good evening, Bill Honan. I have a question regarding solar. I know that's been in the news recently. It's a little bit different than probably what you've been discussing. I wanted to know if it's something you considered, in particular, the installation of solar panels on sloped roofs. My question is, I have a situation where our neighbor's house is very close. There's an alley in between, could be driveway or whatever. And when it snows and the snow starts melting, we get a slippery slope, which causes an avalanche into the side of our house. The noise is tremendous. I'm worried that it's going to damage, you know, the siding and breaking windows, let alone somebody walking underneath, whether it be, you know, a driveway or an alley or whatever. So I'm wondering if somebody considered putting or requiring snow guards to be installed. Now, I noticed the neighbor that I referencing, they don't have anything like that, and that's what's causing this avalanche of snow to come down. So is that something that was ever considered and required? And if not, is it something you could do? And how do you deal with the ones that are already installed that just continually happens?
Sure, and I know we followed the New York State rules for installation, but I don't remember anything about snow.
Snow, no, we found, I don't know that it was New York State rules.
Well,
It was like-
the installations are cut, like the building department makes sure they follow it.
Oh, yeah.
Regulations.
But our own
Not around
regulations
those, no.
didn't include anything. I don't remember discussing it. I don't remember. Larry, you were looking at some sample laws. I don't think it ever came out. It sounds like
Something we have to look at.
sounds like an issue. Maybe we should,
Yeah, can I just ask, is this something that started happening once this person installed solar panels?
Yes, oh yeah.
Okay, so I just
You
wanted
talked
to.
about a slippery slope. That's a
Yeah,
slippery slope because it's a
And
glass
it didn't happen
surface.
before.
Surface, there's not much,
Okay.
you know, friction there, and it, you know, just starts going. And of course, the one thing you don't want to do with solar is keep the snow up there, but, you know, you have to have kind of a happy medium or somebody would get hurt.
Have you talked to the owner about the problem?
Well, it came about even more because of the recent snowstorm, and I was thinking if we had to get somebody out in an emergency in that alley, you know, my mother or something, there's going to be either a pile of snow there or potentially one coming down, and they just kind of weren't aware of it. So I don't want to pursue them. I just wanted to follow up with you guys because I guess the planning board approved it. So I don't know if it was installed wrong or there wasn't a requirement to install
It
it.
was probably not installed wrong. There's no requirement I know of. I've never seen a requirement on snow guards.
It's an interesting and important issue. I'm glad you brought it up. I never heard about this.
Especially if you're
Yeah.
promoting it, I guess now. And, you know, and within the village, the houses are a lot closer, but It could even be a driveway, you know, somebody parking the car, comes out, they get whacked with the neighbor's snow or their own snow.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, no, we can have to follow up, see if there's any.
What would Vermont do?
I'll take a look and see if there's anything in any of the.
Look further, look in Vermont.
Vermont, right?
Yeah, so, you know, somewhere that's.
Somewhere that has all
Yeah,
that.
but you know the difference, their houses are not so far apart. you know?
As an aside, just an aside, there seems like there's a liability issue here too, that, I mean, I'm not a lawyer or anything like that, but,
Oh, yeah.
you know, there's, if you're concerned about your siding and your windows, there's something probably greater that you need to look into than just.
I mean, it comes down, it startled the mailman last week.
Yeah.
Whoa, what was that?
It's interesting, yeah.
I'll take a look and see if there's
Yeah,
anything
good
else.
point, thanks.
And another issue, not a slippery slope, I thought the only one we were gonna deal with was last week, last meeting, but, Burlington sidewalks. I wish, I don't know how, it got to the point where the owners are responsible for shoveling, in the morning. It's not working, it's very, you say walk safe here. Going down last, week in the storm, it just, people are walking in the road and then you have the cars racing to the train. It's not working. I don't know why you guys ever, I know it wasn't you, probably all before your time, but why it was changed. I remember, years ago, Irvington always did it. Irvington was always known for their streets. They're still always great for that. I even remember when they used to have sand barrels on the main street and the side streets. And now you're just leaving it up to the, the owners, and some of the businesses don't even get there that early, 9 o'clock. I mean, well, commuters are already on the train at work.
Yeah, it's just frankly, it was a dollar cents issue. It's manpower. We have like 10 less people now in the DPW than we did 10 years ago. So they just couldn't do it. And it was an outlier. We were the only community other than, I think, the village of Bedford, something like that.
Yeah, Scarsdale's.
So
There was a portion of Scarsdale.
there's, when we looked at it, this was back in '09 when it was budget crisis time, and we had to see what was an outlier from other communities, and I think that was one of them. Connie and I were new on the board. But,
Yeah, no, we were here.
But, and I think I think this winter, we were kind of ready to do better enforcement. I think that was the piece that wasn't there was, it would be late in the day and we hadn't had them cleared yet. So what we decided to do was, rather than giving someone a ticket and it still has, kind of snow there, we actually looked at getting, a contractor or something to do it and then bill the homeowner, whoever it was, after, kind of give them a warning.
Yeah, which isn't terribly effective. There's a long story behind why that's not effective. Bottom line is, I think and that is what's built into the law, is that it doesn't actually allow us to fine people or answer to a summons. It only allows the village to clear it, and that it doesn't work. And so as we move into the warmer weather, this board needs to have a discussion about better ways to implement enforcement and give the village staff the tools to enforce it
And there
properly.
are some other spots that are just tough to do as well.
And it's not just the snow, it's becoming the ice a lot
Yeah, ice.
recently, with freezing rain and sleet
So-
and everything.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if the owner doesn't have any material to put on it,
It's not an excuse. So
it's tough.
it works generally without issue in other communities, and it'll work here. We just need the proper enforcement to make it happen, to get people to
Whose
adhere.
responsibility is it if somebody falls? Who's liable?
Well, I mean, they are the village sidewalks, we understand that, but, I mean, the owner shares in some responsibility and the village shares in some responsibility, so it's in everyone's best interest.
I do give you credit for, it seems like somebody's milling the sidewalks now, trying to correct the upheavals and everything like that, so that's a good start. But yeah, I really think you need to address that, because I've had 2 parents that have fallen, required hospital stays because of the sidewalk. Hopefully, some others won't go through that.
Yep. So
That's my slippery slope stories.
Yeah.
Literally. Anyone else, public comment? Okay. So move on to the consent agenda. We had slightly revised minutes. But that was the only change we had. I don't know if anyone else has. I was excited to see the revenge barbecue
Yeah.
peddler's permit.
I was trying to figure out what they were actually gonna be serving out of a push cart. Breakfast?
Yeah,
6
I'm
a.m.?
guessing it's eggs, but I don't know.
Somebody says you
never been here before?
can't have barbecue for breakfast.
Brisket to eggs.
Oh, it's
Right.
It's actually quite good.
Barbecue and a heart
Yes,
attack.
it's gotten rave reviews.
Oh, is it where the old pizza place was?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I'll try it once.
There are people lined up at 11:30.
They
They're
sell out?
sold out by 12:15. It is the most popular, I haven't had any, but I've watched the lines. So it's a great new business in town. I've spoken to the owner, and he's really enthusiastic. He lives here. It's great.
So if there's no further questions about the consent agenda, I'll make a motion to approve it. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I'll make a motion to open a public hearing to consider local law amending the Irvington Code with respect to solar energy equipment and shared solar projects. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. To the wake?
Yeah,
I'm doing okay, don't worry.
All right, good.
a lot better than last meeting.
Stay off the NyQuil. This was a small revision. I don't know if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, I'll just explain it. Presently, the solar equipment is permitted throughout the village on the condition that it provide power only for the occupants of the premises on which the equipment is located. This amendment would permit, but only in the non-residential districts, that shared solar power projects that have been approved by the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. You recall Nikki Connington came to one of the meetings and asked if and that's what this does. And there's an amendment to the business district and the railroad district, and there doesn't need to be one for the waterfront district, just because any use is permitted there, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, this was kind of a request we got that, you know, if we're going to support solar, we should support NYSERDA's shared solar as well. I think we said, you know, let's pass the law and come back and amend it, so that's
That's what this amendment is,
Yeah.
very narrow.
I mean, it's just a very small change, and it's a very specific use. Anyone else have any comments?
No, I think it's a great idea.
No, I was glad that Nikki brought it to our attention.
Public, have any comments on this?
Snow cards.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think we're ready to vote. Resolve to adopt a local law amending the Irvington Code with respect to solar energy equipment and shared solar projects. I'll make a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Gotta speak fast.
Presentation of the 2017-18 tentative operating budget. Get a nice copy of the village Irvington map. So this has everything other than the letter, right, summarizing it?
All right, this is in, what's available to you now in the dais and in the back of the room is a summary copy. It gives all the revenues and a summary by each department within the funds. And tomorrow, we'll have available the more detailed one that gives each item within each line. So that'll be posted tomorrow, then we'll also will have hard copies for distribution.
At our last work session last Wednesday, we had a lengthy discussion about not just the rec department that was presenting that evening, but the budget in general. You know, I think highlights are we're staying under the tax cap. You know, we're staying under tax caps. We're not using up all of our carry forward from previous year's tax caps. We kept the same amount of fund balance, which to me was fairly conservative considering we had an excellent year last year. We actually, you know, swelled our fund balance last year, so I think that's fairly conservative and it's definitely repeatable. We talked about revenue quite a bit. We talked about how we're having a temporary pop in the building department that, you know, as a result of two large projects. That's obviously not a long-term strategy to balance the budget, but it's definitely going to help in the short term with probably additional, you know, hopefully it's a little bit of additional fund balance, although it seems like we budgeted pretty accurately these last couple of years. We did have some large healthcare increases. That was probably the biggest thing. You know, I think the only thing that we eliminated from the early budgets, the largest thing we eliminated was actually funding for fireworks The FACE committee told us that they were going to be able to fund the fireworks this year, so unfortunately we aren't either. We figured we were kind of facing an over the tax cap situation, and we were looking for cuts. It was frankly a fairly easy cut that almost, almost got us to where we need to be by itself. It's about $24,500 for the fireworks. So that's the only really disappointing news, and I don't know if you can do that as a service cut or not, but it's definitely a fun day that's going to potentially be less fun without fireworks. So it's not too late. There's a very short window if someone wanted to step up and raise the money for it. But there isn't that much time, because we have to let the police department know, and we have to also let the fireworks company know. So it's fairly time sensitive. I'm going to publicize that in the coming days. Now that we're tentatively adopting this budget, but to me those were kind of the highlights. Other than the fact that most of our departments came in slightly down on the year, or
Leveled it down.
Leveled it down. So it was a really good job by the department heads. We've said it before, but it's really not a budget season anymore. It's a constant search for savings, which I think is the only way you can really do it. You're not going to remember that in July you don't have to do this in March. You have to kind of look all year, and I think that to a person, all the department heads are looking for ways to save, looking for ways to maintain what they had while still maintaining the same level of services. And I think we've done that pretty well. We were facing, as I say, a large healthcare increase. That was the biggest thing. But we did. We got under the tax cap. It's a little strange this year because of the full assessment
Yeah, I was
coming
just
in.
going to say, maybe
numbers
somebody
are-
would bring that up
the
so
numbers are a
people
little
aren't
odd.
shocked by some of those
But I think it's
changes.
going to be much more intuitive going forward, I hope. You can kind of see what the assessed valuation is, about $45 million in all the houses in Irvington anymore. It's almost $1.8 billion now. So I think that makes much more sense intuitively. And then the tax rate makes more sense per thousand as well. So, but it is going to be a big change. And I think the other thing this year, again, we're under the tax cap, which was the smallest one. It was what?
Actually, last year was the
Oh, it
absolute
was, you're right,
smallest.
it was under.
In the history of,
Yeah.
all 6 years of the history of the tax cap, we experienced the lowest one.
This year was about 1% of growth.
It was $1.15, and last year was 0.12%.
Yeah,
Point
so it was
12.
flat basically year over
Yeah,
year.
so we've been really operating under the lowest tax caps. So it's been difficult year to year, but we've managed.
And apologies for my voice, I don't want losing it, but also this year, the increase is 2.65%, but almost no one in the village is going to see 2.65. Some people will see a big decrease, some people will see a large increase. This is going to be that oddball year where these numbers are less important, but hopefully next year they'll be much more relevant to each individual resident. We typically set the average increase and all that kind of stuff. It's harder to do this year because it's going to be so all over the place
Absolutely.
after 60 years of no reassessments. So.
Well, we're here to answer any questions if anyone has any. Any residents have any questions?
Yeah.
So this reflects the changes we talked about at the work session?
Yes, they do, right. So at that time, we were able to cut nearly $80,000 from our last meeting.
Good.
So that really gave us, we're under the cap by nearly $40,000.
And that's why we have some to carry over next year.
And we'll have $40,000 to carry over next year. So it helps to ease from year to year.
Yeah.
And then I think we also we appropriated a relatively conservative amount of fund balance, and also year to year, I believe it's a sustainable budget. So thank you too for your guidance, it was very helpful last week.
So the next step in the process is this will be published, by tomorrow on our website. The document's not going to change from now until April 3rd. April 3rd, you have your budget hearing, and at that time, if there's any changes that come about as a result of your discussions or information, maybe new information that we may present,
Yeah.
that's part of the process. You'll also hear from the public and respond to any of those. The hearing can start and stop on April 3rd if you want, or it can continue if you need to, all the way up and through April 20th. And then anytime after you close the public hearing, you have until May 1st to adopt this budget. So that's the process.
So the best time for the public to come would be April
April 3rd would be public.
3rd.
April 3rd is the only public budget hearing that you have scheduled.
Okay. And then we might have one the next time.
Well, if at April
Or-
3rd you decide that it
Right.
needs to be extended or whatever, that's up to you, but.
Okay.
Someone could write as well if they find it.
Yes.
Which we'll encourage through the mayor's
And you're
budget
going to
message.
say something like that.
Yes.
Yes.
So is the line by line on the website, or is it just the?
No, it will be, it'll be the
It will
line
be,
by
yeah.
line,
Full budget.
yeah, the full budget.
Okay.
So just for sake of saving paper.
Yeah, right, thank you.
Because it goes into a binder, actually, that.
Right, well, thank you, Brenda, and everybody for working on this.
No, salary modifications for non-union staff.
Concerned about how we're going to pull a rabbit out of the hat.
So there should be, you guys should receive a revised contract. Filled out some of the part-time library staff.
Yeah, there's some questions that need to be worked out with the library director on that, but that's the only significant change.
Oh, yeah, I have both, right.
Background
Okay.
witnesses,
Oh, yeah,
right.
this-
Yeah, so the board's been presented with essentially 2 years' worth of salary modifications.
Oh, maybe we were supposed to share it.
The village has been
Oh, okay,
in
sorry.
negotiations with one of its unions since June of 2015, and so there have been no raises for non-union employees. The board is considering whether to adopt salary increases for the non-union staff at this time, and that would be effective for June 1st, 2015, and for June 1st, 2016. We're not considering June 1st, 2017 at this point.
I take it these are already reflected in the budget?
Yeah.
Some contingency?
Yes,
was
they
there?
are, yes and no.
Well, right, so what we've done over the past years is set aside money in contingency in the budget each year. So the short answer to that is yes, they've been provided for. How it all shakes out, we have to just, once these are adopted, we need to modify your tentative budget to
Correct.
reflect all these new numbers.
But the money, but like you said, the money's already gone into a full.
So contingency will be decreased.
Yeah.
And the line items which they belong to will have it in there.
Right. Any other questions on this? The law is resolved to modify the annual hourly rates effective on the dates shown below, effective June 1st, 2015, and effective June 1st, 2016.
Can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
We were waiting for one of the union negotiations, so what was it, which one was it?
CSEA.
And so this reflects the same basic increase that they got?
They haven't gotten anything yet. Those negotiations haven't
Haven't
concluded yet.
Concluded, but you
Yeah.
decided to unstick this.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Basically, the non-union workers have been kind of handcuffed by them.
Yeah.
So we think it's fair now that we've had some people that have worked here for 2 years and haven't gotten a raise. So.
Yep, okay, I understand, totally. Thank you.
So, detailed in the, I don't want to read them all. Motion, can I have a second? Second. All in favor? Next is resignation from the Tree Preservation Commission. Unfortunately, Jerry Shapiro is resigning from the Tree Preservation Commission after many years of service, I believe. Sorry to see her go. And it'll allow us once again to say that if you're interested in serving on the Tree Preservation Commission, we'd love to have you. We'll provide training. Training, I guess, really you need a love of trees, and some knowledge is definitely helpful, but we'll definitely help fill in. If the desire's there, we'll help train you.
And, Jerry was very instrumental. She was on the tree commission when I first joined it, and she was very helpful during the period of us updating the code. We went through, I guess, 2 code updates, and she was quite active in that. I'm just sorry to see that she's no longer going to be of service to us in the village. she was also involved in the beautification committee
Streetscape, master planning.
and the nature center. So I guess all of those were less official appointments or something. I'm not sure why we don't see paperwork on that. But this was the last commission or committee that she was trying to keep active in.
What were the other ones you said?
Beautification.
Beautification, streetscape,
The streetscape committee is,
yeah, that's,
the Woods Committee,
just saying,
I think.
she did that work, I'm just pointing that out, right? Not that she had to resign from it.
okay, well, the correspondence we got only related to the tree committee.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's also Woods Committee yeah, because she was.
Someone's got to tell us that. So.
She resigned from that a long time ago, officially.
That's what I thought.
Just in way of thanking Jerry. Thank you, Jerry.
So resolved to accept with regret the resignation of Jerry Shapiro from the Tree Preservation Commission. I'll make the motion. You have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, an intermunicipal agreement between the town of Greenberg and the villages of Ardsley, Dobbsbury, Elmsford, Hastings-on-Hudson, Irvington, Sleepy Hollow, and Tarrytown for the purposes of borrowing, lending, exchanging, and sharing equipment.
Well, it's just that.
Please explain.
Yeah, well, there's not a lot to explain beyond that. This is to sort of formalize the relationship between the various communities that frequently share equipment. And it spells out who's responsible for what and, under what circumstances. So it's something that, was probably necessitated by an incident that then, no one had the answers to. Damage to equipment or something like that.
We weren't involved in it.
Which didn't involve us, but it made sense to formalize the arrangement so everyone understands who's responsible for what.
Yep, it obviously makes sense to be sharing specialized equipment if one town has it or one village has it.
Oh, yeah.
Which you've been doing for a long time.
Oh,
Exactly,
absolutely,
right.
yeah. This doesn't change the practice, it just
Yeah.
changes the conditions under which they do it.
Exactly.
It's equipment and materials.
Yeah.
Do we share in the purchase of equipment as well? In other words, you
Like
know,
asphalt.
fund a
No.
portion of a piece of equipment? or-
We haven't, no. No, it's typically, first of all, that notion is rather difficult because the equipment has to exist one place or another. I mean, it's possible, but I think at this point, we all know what each other has, and when we need a particular piece of equipment, we borrow it. The fact that we can borrow it means we don't have to go out and buy it ourselves. So we'll, a backhaul unit, and maybe the next town doesn't, so there's some sharing that can go on there.
Got to return it completely gassed up.
It's like a work car, yeah. And we charge you higher rates right by the DPW garage.
A lot of leaf blowers went down. I'm just kidding.
Resolved to approve an intermunicipal agreement between the town of Greenberg and the villages of Ardsley, Dobbsbury, Elmsford, Hastings-on-Hudson, Irvington, Sleepy Hollow, and Tarrytown for the purposes of borrowing, lending, exchanging, and sharing equipment, and to authorize the village administrator to execute said agreements. I'll make the motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Can I borrow a ton of asphalt?
We're going to pay over your backyard. Approval of contract 2017-01 with Nelson Nygaard for Route 9 Active Transportation Conceptual Design Plan.
Okay, so this contract is, and it involves 5 communities adjacent to each other from Sleepy Hollow down to Hastings, Tarrytown, Irvington, Dobbs, and Hastings. So those 5 communities jointly applied for a grant from the new New York Bridge Community Benefits Program. Irvington acted as the lead agent to submit the grant application, and the award was made, so our name is on it. The committee of interested individuals from each of the communities got together to interview a variety of consultants. The consultants will be charged with studying the pedestrian, bicyclist, and vehicle access all up and down the Route 9 Broadway corridor, and the study with the intention of analyzing possible changes to Broadway to allow those modes of transportation to more adequately coexist. So it's a study that the new New York Bridge felt was important and in keeping with what they're trying to do, which is they have a shared use path on the new bridge that will terminate in Tarrytown, and so there's good reason to believe that there will be a larger influx of pedestrians and possibly more bicyclists coming off of the bridge, and it would be extremely helpful to have a welcoming Broadway to accommodate those other forms of transportation. It's a tall order. This is only to study it, and certainly anything that it recommends, any changes that they recommend would be pretty capital intensive, and we'll all have to look at them as communities to figure out whether they can get done. But this is the first step. So we are the lead agent in this, so you're being asked to approve this contract knowing that it does not cost the village anything except some of our volunteer time and some of my time. But it's in the same fashion as the other 4 communities are spending, their time as well. But all of this contract is reimbursed 100% by the grant that was awarded.
What portion of the grant is being used for this contract?
Almost 100% of it. Yeah, the grant was $150,000. This contract is just a hair under $150,000. In fact, it's interesting you asked that because the approach on this RFP was not to. The approach was, we have $150,000 to spend. Tell us what you'll give us under these broad parameters. And this vendor, was far and away more superior than the others, far superior, and that's essentially how we went about it. It wasn't just, this is our detailed scope of exactly what we want. How much is it going to cost? We told them how much it is, and so that we evaluated the scope, which was an interesting approach. Worked well.
I looked through it. I didn't read it in detail, but it seems like it's including more than just Broadway.
Well, they are looking at the intersecting streets, sure, and the way they interact with Broadway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
But there's an example
analysis
of there's an example of what I was saying. In other words, this particular consultant had a much more comprehensive approach to the analysis.
Is there a sense of how long their work will take?
10 months.
10 months, okay, thank you.
The work of visually improving this, right?
Well, the terms of the contract, some of you have heard me say this before, it might sound like a broken record. The grant that was awarded, we do not yet have a state contract for the grant from the new New York Bridge program. We haven't even been presented with a contract for signature. So this contract is being held in abeyance until the grant contract is received and approved, or at least there's some indication that it's going to be approved. Because Irvington, of course, being the lead agent here, we don't want to be in a position of incurring costs and then running the risk that they not get reimbursed, of course. So there's very clear language in here about when the contractor needs to start working, when the consultant needs to start working, which is and from the moment they receive the notice to proceed, they have 10 months to complete their work. So the contract's on hold. You're being asked to approve it so we can hit the ground running. But it's not going to start, they're not going to start working just yet.
We don't need to change the language of the,
No, the language reflects all of what I just said.
yeah. Because our resolution's pretty basic, but it's in the contract.
No, the contract is clear,
Got it.
hopefully. No, Mary Ann looked at it all, of course.
Any other questions? Resolved to approve contract 2017-01 with Nelson Nygaard for the Route 9 Active Transportation Conceptual Design and authorizing the village administrator to execute said agreement. I'll make the motion. Can I have a second? Second. All in favor? Appointment of an assistant building inspector.
Okay, so a couple of years ago, the board was presented with the idea of essentially eliminating a full-time administrative position in favor of a part-time administrative position and then a full-time assistant building inspector. The theme that you were presented with is that we were, because of efficiencies in the building department with the computerization and the records scanning and online access and all that, we were able to take the overhead of administration and convert it into a professional person out on the street, doing safety inspections. And we've been unable since that time to hire an adequate, acceptable full-time assistant building inspector like we had liked. We've supplemented it with some part-time work here and there, but we have a person that we know is good. She's worked here now, and we are able to appoint her. It is a provisional appointment, which she's fully aware of. It simply means that she needs to take a test for assistant building inspector, but she has all the variety of state certifications that she needs. But that's a bridge she'll need to cross in the future. But at this point, we are recommending this.
And there's not like a list that she has to compete against?
No, the list is really defunct at this point. We canvassed the list and there were no interested candidates.
Right.
And once that happens, the county realizes it, and they've ordered the test. The test will be given soon, in the next few months, I suppose. But in the meantime, we are allowed to appoint provisionally, but when you appoint someone provisionally, they do have this hurdle of having to pass a test at some point, and it means keeping their job or not when they take that test. But she's fully aware of that.
Is the building inspector's load to be reduced significantly with this position?
That's the intention.
Given that it's full-time as opposed to?
Yes. And so what this then leaves us with in the building department are, of course, the head building inspector and assistant, and then we still do have a part-time inspector who will continue on for as long as the workload necessitates it. And you know that we have the Dunham Hill Marker Ridge project, whatever it's called, the DiNardo project. And so there's a significant workload there, but having the extra half part-time position gives you the flexibility to then eliminate that at some point. And then those conversations have been had. This is not earth-shattering information. So
I think this is a great step.
yeah, it's a good.
Anything else? I just want to see all electronic plans and the whiteboard. Sorry, I'm just bringing it up because building department topic. I know the planning board will always want to have paper, but I know the rest, the ARB group has been pining to go all electronic. So it's a bigger issue, I know, I understand.
Resolved to make the following provisional appointment to the building department effective March 21st, 2017. Alyssa Berger, $58,256, status as the assistant building inspector. I'll make the motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 14, small change, authorization to approve change order number 8.
Okay, so there was a bit of a dispute between the contractor, which is actually the bonding company now, as you may recall, and the terracotta supplier. Terracotta supplier was insisting that for a variety of reasons they were owed somewhere in excess of $40,000 because of changes, and none of that was communicated until the last minute, now that the terracotta is ready to be shipped. We looked at it very closely with the architects. We could probably see that they could only make a case for about 30,000 of that, 32,000 roughly. But given the timing and given the lack of backup on their side, the bonding company, I should say bonding company made an offer to settle the dispute at $16,000. 8,000 of that share, and the village is taking 8,000 of that share. So we think it's, again, what we're taking, the share of it is more than justified, and certainly under the circumstances, it was the right answer. So they certainly were not going to be on the hook for $40,000 plus, but the $8,000 is appropriate in this instance.
the Terracotta Company you're saying they couldn't back up their numbers?
I'm saying if we had to have it in front of an arbitrator to settle the dispute, we think we had a decent case, but nothing's 100%.
Yeah,
And
right.
delays are delays, and there's costs to that too, so we,
Now, are these all delays that were inflicted during the reign of the failed contractor, or?
some of it was a lack.
Yeah.
But isn't there also a time sensitivity about when it has to get delivered and installed?
So
Yeah,
that we can move
So we
on.
can.
And in fairness, and I don't mean to characterize the terracotta supplier as holding the terracotta hostage, because they weren't. They did actually say up front that they were not going to delay the shipment. So we frankly could have turned around and said 0, but we were concerned about it still going in front of an arbitrator to be settled, the amount, and it's just not worth it, so.
No, and they always minimally split it, you know?
Right, and we thought that there was a portion that was justified. We're not saying it was 0, you
Right,
know,
right.
and so realistically, so the 16 that was offered by the bonding company with us sharing 8 and them sharing 8 was a very good solution, I thought, and
And the Terracotta Company feels made whole, or?
they
as best as-
accepted it.
Yeah.
That's all. So
Right.
So there's-
I
Not
don't know.
necessarily, but they accepted it.
They accepted it, that's all I care about.
This doesn't relate to actually and paying it, before we have it or know it's okay. I mean, we don't,
No,
we don't
no,
just
no.
throw out and pay it before we get it.
No, not at all, no.
Right.
First of all, the contractor is responsible for paying the terracotta
Right,
supplier.
because they're a
And they're
subcontractor.
paying on a schedule, there's a schedule of values that they're paying on, so this is not, they've been paid all along up to a point. But now we are expecting the shipment soon, they should be stored locally, and then when the weather improves enough, it'll be installed. So we're still on a late June, early July timeframe for the project to be done, but
You tell them to fix it again?
No, it's 100 years. We need 100
Just in time
years.
for the fireworks.
Okay, got it.
Resolved to approve change order number 8 for Irving Tile Theater Project, and to authorize the village administrator to execute said change order. I'll make a motion. Can I have a second?
Okay.
All in favor? Next, something we're paying for that we didn't even know about, but authorization to approve change order number 1 for contract 2016-32 with O'Brien and Gear Engineers, Inc. for engineering services related to Halsey Pond Dam number 2.
yeah. Well, I'd like to say this is as easy as the $8,000 change order, but it's not. So you all are aware that we are doing an engineering analysis of the Halsey Pond Dam. And when I say dam, I mean the upper dam, because there is actually a lower dam. It's relatively small, pretty tall, but relatively small. And the DEC has the upper dam on their radar screen. In the course of doing the engineering analysis, our engineers noticed a significant channeling in the lower dam. In their words, they are concerned about it breaching. A breach of the lower dam would result in flooding downstream, especially to Downingwood, which is right behind that dam. So the recommended approach from our engineers is to siphon out the lower pond. The lower dam only creates that lower pond. That's all it does. We actually don't even know what the purpose is, other than it looks nice, I suppose. But the lower dam is in poor condition, and our engineers are not recommending that it be restored or rebuilt in any way. They're recommending that the water from the lower pond be siphoned out to lower the water level, and then the lower dam be breached on purpose. All of that activity requires a permit from the DEC, so our engineers are doing the design work and obtaining the permit approvals from New York State to allow us to then go in and breach the lower dam safely. So this engineering change order, this is a change order on the engineering contract side of it. This is not the construction or the heavy machinery that's going to be needed to breach the dam. We don't even have estimates on that because they haven't started their work on it yet. So your approval is required of this to get them going on this process. Suffice it to say, we can't wait to allow the lower dam to run its course. We need to breach it safely and decommission it, and this is the first step. So this isn't even related to the upper dam analysis, which is still going on and will go on.
And what's the monetary value of this contract again?
41,100.
Yeah.
And they said something about, I was reading that the permitting process is actually more complex than just the state, because the water in the dam, behind the dam is considered, may be considered federal water.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
Yeah, I mean,
Almost half the cost is.
Yeah, it
United
is.
States, and therefore requires a Army Corps of Engineer permit as well.
I'll let you know. I don't know.
That's the worst case, isn't it?
Yeah, probably, but
Yeah.
um,
Or the best case, depending on.
if you're an engineer, it's the best case. Anyway,
As far
so,
as the upper dam is concerned, are we fulfilling whatever the DEC time requirements were for?
yeah, we notified them, they sent us correspondence telling us that we had to do this engineering analysis. We've gotten back to them to tell them that we've engaged with an engineer and that the work is proceeding diligently. That's all I can really do at this point. They didn't set a deadline, but I think we have to show progress on the engineering analysis, which is underway and continuing. So, obviously, there's not a heck of a lot of work they can do in the middle of the winter, but that work is continuing.
Happy spring.
Yeah.
No one has a clue why that lower dam was there.
To make a little koi pond.
I don't know.
Has there
I
been
mean, it's
any?
the Historical Society, I don't know.
What I'm wondering is going to be a surprise once it gets drained, that kind of thing.
It'll be a surprise.
For Atlantis.
No, I don't know. You never know. I'm just wondering. It's like
The Halsey Pond Tea House is in the main pond. I can't even picture that lower part in my head.
because no one
It's
ever
a
really.
spillover to be.
Yeah.
I can show you some nice aerials of it.
Okay.
Someone told me that it was an old koi pond that was like after the, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this was a great estate with all kinds of
Right.
cute
But
little things.
What's interesting is that if you measure from the base of the lower dam to the top of the lower dam, it's actually taller than the upper dam, which is hard to believe. Now, it's not as wide, but it's actually taller, which is interesting.
Trip.
Yes. That's what it looks like.
So this is basically money we're spending to find out how bad it is and how much more money we'll have to spend?
It's money we're spending to figure out how to decommission it.
Okay,
So we're not trying to salvage the lower dam.
okay.
I mean,
The most efficient way to
Yes.
go about making it right.
correct.
Has there been or any communication with Downing Woods Association? Or maybe, I don't know if anybody else thinks that's important, but
We'll see what the permit requirements are, whatever those
just,
are.
just as a courtity to
What, by the way,
let them know.
take everything up off the floor?
Make sure you keep your boots on.
I'm not, I'm not ready to communicate with them until I have the
Okay, well,
information.
listen. Did you bring a fishing rod? It's all-
But in all seriousness, though, and I've probably said it to you in some setting before, either, this is going to be a lot of money. So, and I don't even know what it's going to cost to deal with the upper dam, because we'll know that once the engineering analysis is done. But it's going to be a lot of money, and you're going to be dealing with it in your capital budget and your tax cap for next year, and it's not the way we want to spend money, but it's also a clear safety issue, obviously.
Now, if you're approving the dam, and that's capital?
Oh, yeah.
It's not operational funds or?
No, the money's going to far exceed anything we can, you're probably talking $500,000 at least to deal with some of the issues that are out around this dam.
Is it,
And I don't even know.
we don't even know if they're going to have to drain Halsey Pond, right?
Oh, I don't,
You don't have a clue yet.
no,
Yeah.
that's too far down the road.
Yeah.
I mean, the steps are, we need to see what the condition of the dam is. This is the upper dam. Structurally sound. This is not a question of it's going to breach at any moment, believe me. That's not what we're talking about here.
Well, that's why I was wondering.
The lower dam, I didn't say it about the lower dam. The upper dam the condition is being assessed right now. It's not There are not leaks everywhere with, things falling out. That's not an issue. The issue is going to be how to fix whatever defects there may be, or that over time can be a problem. And we need to see what the impact on that structure is when and if there's a certain size design storm, a certain size storm, 100-year, 10-year, whatever the proper design storm is. The engineering model is going to analyze that to see whether the dam can hold it back under those conditions, whatever those conditions are. And if it can't, then some significant structural improvements have to happen. And then it gets even more deep. But then that raises, and how do you physically make improvements to it? And that may involve lowering water levels. I mean, that's, there's only certain ways you can get to it. But that's way down the road.
I do think that, to me, the one glimmer of hope I have is that when Halsey Castle itself, Halsey Castle proper, was deemed to be unsafe, they had a lot of difficulty knocking it down with bulldozers. So I'm hoping that this potentially unsafe dam is actually much more sound than.
And no one said, by the way, I know you said potentially unsafe. We're not even calling it an unsafe dam. The lower dam's a different story. That one needs to be decommissioned. The upper dam is being analyzed right now. It's simply, the DEC simply came in and said, oh, you have a dam there. It's only been there for 120 years. But we found it, and you have a dam there, and because there are properties nearby and the outflow goes underneath Broadway, which is a state road, eventually makes it to the railroad tracks, that all of those factors mean that that we think that this is a high hazard dam, that it could cause problems if it were to breach. They didn't say anything about it's going to breach. That's what our engineers have to do. They have to look at it. So all that is totally up for discussion and up for analysis. But the fact is we have to do it. And you've already approved the first contract. This is now the second unforeseen contract.
Resolved to approve change order number 1 for engineering services related to the Halsey Pond Dam and to authorize the village administrator to execute said change order. I'll make a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Losing steam here.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Approval for the 2016 Village of Irvington Volunteer Fire Department Service
That's
Award.
more fun.
It's a very impressive list.
Hey, Brian, you're on it again.
I'm on it, but
I thought you were off of it.
I'm inactive,
Yeah.
but I'm still on the list. But I didn't make it though. I got
You
2
didn't get
points.
a service.
Yeah, I think I went to a funeral twice or something like that. So.
Well, that
I didn't have
must,
any training or anything.
that must have been the miscellaneous.
Yeah, exactly. That's how my only 2 points are on the right-hand corner. But there are, a couple dozen very active firefighters, which is so rare and so appreciated. These days of everyone having to work so hard in their day jobs with their families, and finding the incredible amount of hours responding to calls at all the hours. We can't express our gratitude and our appreciation enough. From someone who did do it for 15 years before I decided to come sit over here, there was nothing kind of more fulfilling and satisfying that I've ever done. So if people are interested in joining the fire department, I recommend that you look into it, find out the time commitment. It is a big time commitment, but as I say, for me, who did something completely different for work, I found it very satisfying and a lot of great skills that I learned that I still use today, even though I haven't put on any turnout gear in about 5 or 6 years.
But still putting out fire.
Still putting on.
Floods and fires.
So if you don't mind, maybe for the benefit of others that haven't been on the board that long, this is a pension plan for volunteers. And the way that they earn money towards their pension is they earn points each year, and they have to reach 50 points in any given year in order to earn a year of service to get their small pension at the end of their service or at age 65. The point system, I won't go into the details, but you can probably figure it out from the listing maybe, involves attending meetings, attending fires, attending training, a whole variety of items that can feed into the point system, and it's balanced in such a way that you can't earn your points all just by going to meetings. It's spread out because there's maximums. So the pension at the end of their time working is the number of years of service times, is it $20?
It's 25.
25, I think it was slightly raised. $25 times the number of years of service per month that they would get as a pension at age 65, through the rest of their life. So it's a small but not insignificant benefit that they accrue, and this community has had this in effect for at least 20, I think it was 25 years or so, maybe 26 now. There's also a similar one for the ambulance corps. It's been in effect for 16 or 17 years. So it's a way of attracting and retaining volunteers.
Yeah, my quick count was about 30 firefighters qualified this year, so.
It's an impressive list.
I just want to second what Brian said about appreciating the service that these folks are doing for the community. Thank you again.
So this may seem like a little bit of a rubber stamp because you really don't know what people have done, but they have a tracking system and software that tracks what people do and when they attend, when they don't attend, and that point system is taken care of over at the firehouse. It's then presented to you as the governing body. Once you approve it, it goes to our actuary, gets accumulated by our actuary so that they keep track of it when the person does finally retire.
Any questions? Otherwise, resolved to approve the 2016 service listing for volunteers of the Irvington Volunteer Fire Department to be used for the length of service award plan. Make a motion, have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Reports of boards, standing committees, and officers. Trustee liaison reports.
Well, we've heard. Tree Commission meets second and fourth Tuesdays. There's a meeting tomorrow, in fact. Be nice to get some folks volunteering to work in that regard for the community. There's, I'm trying to think what else is interesting that stands out right now. I'm on the Code Modernization Subcommittee of the Comprehensive Plan Committee, and that's met several times now, is meeting on Thursday for its next. We're moving slowly through the list of items that were collected through the roundtable and other means. Great. The group's working pretty good, I think. It's functioning, and we've had input from Marianne, which has been very helpful.
Anything else?
No, I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Can I ask a question about the tree commission thing?
Yeah.
I had volunteered, but I didn't hear anything about it.
You did.
Oh, for Tree Commission?
Yeah.
Oops,
Right, you did it.
Well, come to a meeting.
Tomorrow?
Well, it's a word meeting tomorrow. It's probably not the best one because it's a short meeting. Because of the.
You want to go to a really long one first. It's pretty fun.
No, it's going to be. It's actually there's no permits. It's going to be covering other
It's not
stuff.
a regular meeting.
It's not a regular meeting, but if you write me, I'll send you the calendar of when they are, and I'll get you in touch with Alan Richardson, who's the chair.
Yeah, so to say, maybe have Alan reach out.
Yeah.
So you can email Mark, is that correct, Alan?
Uh-huh.
Not only did you volunteer once, you volunteered twice.
You're on for 10, you're on for 10 years.
Uh-oh.
And back to Doc.
Fees and registration information for 2017 Summer Day Camp is now available to the public. There will be early bird registration in April and May, but if you want to call, you can get information ahead of time. Tomorrow is the rescheduled St. Patrick's Senior Citizens Lunch. It is also the CAB meeting. Wednesday is the RPAC meeting. The Irvington Woods Committee has 2 major events on the schedule. Spring in Nature Day will be on Saturday, May 13th from 11 to 12. The day will include building birdhouses, making flower or herb boxes, and much more. And the wine and cheese fundraiser for the Irvington Woods Committee is on Sunday, June 4th from 5 to 7 p.m. Park permits are available. No, park permits will be available on May 1st. Do not feed the geese in our parks, please. That's it.
That's the end? Okay, so we had storm number 10, 11, and 12 since I last reported. We had 2 inches, we had 16 inches, and we had a dusting. And obviously, the 16 inches. I thought we had 13 inches. Greg says we had 16 inches. Okay, because we had 16 inches.
Greg says we had 6.
Yeah, right,
I
right.
heard from other weather.
What?
I heard 14 or 15.
All right, well, it's, I go by Greg.
More than a foot of snow.
Right, his plow knows. So that was a big job. Thank you. Thank you, Department of Public Works. They have obviously a lot of maintenance of their winter equipment, and they assisted. There was a water main break, I bet, Mark, you know this, on Harriman and Park. It was a repair completed. There was a 12-inch valve, and both the DPW and Water Department worked on that. There was storm damage curve on West Clinton, and of course, there were more potholes, and potholes were filled. So that was kind of a combination of the Water Department, which of course they continued to read the water meters. And 2 of the Water Department employees were actually assisting the DPW with their snow plowing with this big job. The indoor farmers market continues on the Saturdays. The last one is Saturday, April 22nd. Now that indoor market might actually be outdoors. And then there are no markets until June. So there's just a break there, but I think by all accounts those have been very successful, very well attended. Inside the Main Street School on the Saturdays, is it 2nd and 4th? Somebody can, well, whichever April 22nd is. Historic District Committee is really putting some very last minute, some input from the building inspector on their guide document that seems to be getting completed. And I'll be meeting with the Theater Commission tomorrow night. Tomorrow's Tuesday, yes. Okay, I think that's it.
Nothing really substantive to report, but since I have the privilege of being the liaison to the fire department, just want to also say how much we appreciate. It's an impressive number of people and number of hours who do this. Volunteer, everybody, so thank you. And also the school is working mostly with Connie, but on Celebrate Irvington Day, but they've been very, very involved and very eager to participate and get the kids participating, which is good.
Right. Thank you for reminding me about that.
All set?
Mm-hmm.
Village Administrator's Report.
Nothing tonight.
Village Clerk Treasurer's Report.
I'll just give a brief update on the Ardsley train station parking. We had approximately 80 people on a wait list, and then we've been reaching out to those people one by one, offering parking permits. We had available 25 to sell as people were not renewing, had not renewed. And there remains about 35 people on the list. So
Wow,
just
from 80
filling-
to 35.
35, right.
And we haven't shared those other spaces yet, right?
Yeah.
Right, so there will potentially be more available.
What do you mean?
Will there potentially be more spaces
Spaces available.
when we would capture those parking spaces, or when we change the parking?
Possible.
No more will be added to the, or no more will be added?
Hold on. I'm sorry. No, then I misunderstood you.
Ardsley train station.
When we start
We were
ticketing,
going to,
there's your chance that there'll be more turnover and maybe issue some more permits. possibly.
Yes,
Because
based
of the-
upon the enforcement, is that what you're
Yeah.
saying? Yes, I'm sorry, I thought you meant we were adding more spaces.
Well,
Yeah.
adding in fact,
Allowing
but-
out the.
Yes, yes, if the enforcement yields less unpermitted cars there, then the answer is yes, that we will be able to issue more.
Okay, so
But we'll-
potentially there, we don't know
Yes.
yet, but we're
No, we don't
looking
yet.
at it, possibly adding more by that means.
And that's,
Correct.
the background is we changed the number of hours that you could park there from 6, was it 6 to 2? Okay,
6 to 3.
6 to 3,
Great.
okay.
That's all.
Village attorney's report?
I don't have a report.
Public comment? Last chance for a couple of weeks. Review of action items, Larry?
So the main one was up front about the leaf blower law, and, I mean, there were a variety of ideas. I wasn't jotting down detailed notes, but we have lots of information on where we were when we dropped the process. One of them was looking at other communities, I realized that, but there's other things that and some of that may have been done already, so we'll resurrect that.
I had a follow-up to look for some regulation of some requirement of snow guards in connection with solar equipment.
That's the only other one I have. Anyone else? Have any thoughts?
I gotta get Alan Richardson's information passed out.
Okay,
That's a follow-up.
absolutely. Now I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session regarding collective bargaining negotiations. Can I have a second? All in favor?